All right, let's unpack this. When we think about elections, our minds almost automatically jump to the national headlines, the presidential race, those big congressional battles.
Right, big stuff.
Yeah. But what if I told you that some of the most profound, direct, and immediate impacts on your daily life actually happen much closer to home
Hmm.
in your state and local elections? Today, we're diving deep into exactly why these often overlooked races are not just important, but absolutely critical for the fabric of our communities.
That's a crucial point. For this deep dive, our goal is to really shine a light on the tangible power wielded at these state and local levels.
Okay.
We'll dissect the sometimes surprising reasons why voter turnout can be so low, explore the critical evolving trends shaping election laws across the country.
Yeah, those are changing fast.
They really are. And then bring it all home by looking at some specific, high-stakes education-related races and ballot measures from the 2024 elections.
Good example.
And finally, we'll talk about how we can all, actively boost engagement. We've gathered a comprehensive stack of articles and research to guide us through this intricate landscape, making sure you walk away truly well-informed.
So let's get right into it then. Why do these smaller elections often have a bigger, more immediate impact on our daily lives than, say, the national drama suggests?
Yeah.
Give us the real-world examples, because that's where the rubber truly meets the road.
It's really about what you experience every single day.
Mm.
State and local decisions directly influence fundamental aspects of your community.
Like what, specifically?
Well, from your kids' schools to your local criminal justice system, the roads you drive on, even how your neighborhood develops, these are the choices you literally see and live with, day in, day out.
Okay, let's dig into some of those. Education feels like a great starting point for many families.
Absolutely. Think
Yeah.
about school board policies. They directly shape the curriculum and, crucially, the funding for your children's education.
Right. What gets taught, how much money the school has.
Exactly. Then you have governors who, in states like Delaware, Indiana, New Hampshire, and Vermont, have the power to appoint chief state school officers.
So they pick the top education official.
In those states, yes. And across 10 of the 11 states that had gubernatorial races this cycle, governors appoint members to state boards of education.
Wow.
Beyond that, state legislatures, with their roughly 150 education-related legislative committees nationwide, control much of the policy agenda. They really define what happens in classrooms.
That's a huge impact on our schools. But what about something like criminal justice? That feels incredibly immediate for many communities.
That's another really powerful area. Locally elected officials like judges, district attorneys, DAs, public defenders, and county sheriffs make decisions with lasting impacts.
Okay, break that down. DAs.
District attorneys decide who gets charged and what charges are filed. Public defenders ensure legal representation for those who can't afford it.
Yeah.
Sheriffs manage county law enforcement and corrections. And for a concrete example, look at Harris County, Texas. Elected judges implemented reforms there starting around 2018.
And the result.
Well, 85% of misdemeanor arrestees were released without cash bail. They saw fewer juveniles ending up in prison, and over 3,200 cases were dismissed due to lack of probable cause.
That's huge.
These aren't abstract policies. They are direct, tangible results reshaping lives right there in your community.
Those are powerful, immediate impacts. And we've talked about education and criminal justice, but what about the stuff we literally see and use every day? You mentioned roads, parks, basic services.
That's a fantastic and often overlooked point.
Yeah.
Decisions about pothole repairs, how our parks are maintained, where bus roads go, the quality of our water and sanitation systems,
All local decisions.
all direct results of local budgets and priorities set by those elected officials. And beyond services, things like zoning regulations, they dictate how our neighborhoods develop, where new businesses can open, even the, architectural character of our towns.
Right, like can they build that big apartment complex down the street?
Exactly. These aren't abstract policies. They are the very fabric of our lived experience.
It's incredible how much of our everyday reality is decided at this level. And then there's the broader legislative and executive power. How do city councils, mayors, state legislatures fit in?
Well, at the state level, legislatures make critical decisions on taxes, highways, public schools, state-supported colleges and universities, state parks, and funding for social programs and the judicial system. Huge areas.
And closer to home.
City councils and county commissions, they have the final vote on local laws and city budgets. They initiate proposals, approve department heads, mayors, or city managers, then implement those executive functions.
So the council passes it, the mayor does it.
Yeah,
generally.
basically, yeah. And it's worth noting that some major cities like San Francisco, Indianapolis, Philadelphia, they even combine city and county governments for a consolidated impact.
Interesting.
So whether it's a tax hike or a new park, these bodies hold immense power over your daily life.
It's clear these decisions hit home hard and fast. So if these local decisions have such immediate, tangible impact, why isn't everyone rushing to the polls? Is there something about the math of these elections that makes our individual vote even more powerful?
That's a key insight, yes.
Yeah.
Because turnout is generally lower in state and local races, your individual vote carries significantly more weight.
More bang for your buck, so to speak.
Exactly. It makes it a more powerful tool for change than many realize. These local government decisions are often less partisan, too, more focused on practical, community-specific
You're
issues.
fixing that pothole.
Right, and they have a much faster feedback loop with citizens. Your voice, through your vote, can have a more direct and noticeable effect on an outcome.
That brings up an interesting point about accountability. Do our elected officials at these levels truly feel the pressure from voters, given this direct impact?
They absolutely do. And what's truly insightful here, maybe a bit cynical, is that research shows state legislators are actually more productive, sponsoring more bills, serving on more committees, attending more roll call votes when they are eligible for re-election.
Ah, when they know they have to face us again.
Precisely. It tells us that the immediate prospect of facing voters is a powerful, almost, primal driver of engagement and accountability,
Yeah.
maybe more so than abstract civic duty sometimes.
And the flip side.
Conversely, lame duck legislators in term-limited states, they tend to be less productive, which really just reinforces the point. Elections work as an incentive.
It's a perplexing paradox, isn't it? If these elections truly shape our daily lives so profoundly, why do they consistently struggle for our attention? What are the biggest forces at play keeping voter turnout in the local realm so consistently low?
You've hit on a core conundrum.
Yeah.
Municipal elections often see abysmally low turnout, sometimes less than 20%,
20%. Wow.
and typically hovering around 27% of eligible voters nationwide. And the voters who do turn out, they're often disproportionately white, affluent, and elderly.
So not really representative of the whole community.
Often not, no. The question then is why this happens, why this gap, this demographic skew.
So if these elections are so impactful, what's keeping the broader electorate from showing up? Is there a historical reason for this low engagement?
There is, and it's quite an interesting historical artifact, actually. Historically, back in the Progressive era, reforms were implemented to separate local elections from state and national ones.
Why did they do that?
Well, the intention, ostensibly, was to focus on local issues and reduce partisan influence. Make it about the town, not the party.
Okay, sounds reasonable on the surface.
But the evidence unambiguously shows that these off-cycle elections have dramatically lower turnout, often half or even less than on-cycle elections held concurrently with state or federal races.
Half. That's massive.
It is. And the kicker, approximately 80% of American cities still hold off-cycle elections today.
80%. So this practice is widespread.
Very. And the irony is, this timing, though intended to depoliticize, has been described in history as potentially a partisan power play. It inadvertently helped political machines or organized interest groups
So?
by ensuring a smaller, more easily mobilized electorate. If fewer people vote, it's easier for a dedicated group to sway the outcome.
It's quite a twist, isn't it? So by trying to make local elections purer, the progressives inadvertently created a system that ironically makes it easier for highly organized, sometimes partisan, groups to exert outsized influence.
Exactly, in that low turnout environment. But beyond the timing, what other barriers are at play? Information access and confusion are huge factors.
Meaning people just don't know who or what they're voting for.
Pretty much. Voters often feel underprepared for local races because there's just less media coverage,
Yeah.
particularly with the decline of local news outlets and the nationalization of news.
Everything's about DC.
Right. It's simply harder to research numerous candidates in a local race. Imagine a mayoral election with 16 or 17 candidates,
Yeah, where do you even start?
and without easy, consolidated information. It's tough. To add to that, many municipalities use nonpartisan ballots. Party affiliations aren't listed.
So you can't use the D or R as a shortcut.
Exactly. Which can lead to voter confusion and make it harder for voters to quickly align candidates with their general political leanings if that's how they usually vote.
It sounds like there's a lot of mental heavy lifting involved for the average voter. Are there psychological factors at play too, beyond just the practical stuff?
Yes, there are subtle psychological barriers that can be quite powerful. We see things like zero-risk bias or regret aversion.
Okay, what does that mean in practice?
Think of it like this. Some people would rather not play a game at all than risk making the wrong move.
Fear of messing up.
Kind of. Here, it means choosing not to vote to avoid the perceived risk of backing a bad candidate, or maybe to sidestep any future regret over an incorrect choice, even if not voting carries a greater collective community risk.
That's fascinating. What else?
We also see negativity bias. Our brains just tend to remember negative things more easily than positive ones.
So one bad experience sticks with you.
It can. It might lead to skepticism towards candidates because of past disappointments, or just a focus on perceived failures rather than successes. Makes people wary.
So past bad experiences can really weigh on future participation. And what about demographic shifts or social dynamics? How do those factor into lower turnout?
Demographic and social factors are crucial. For instance, young people move more often. About half of all movers are in their 20s.
Right, moving for school, jobs.
Exactly. And this high mobility makes it harder for them to get familiar with new local issues, new officials. It disrupts civic participation.
Makes sense. You don't know the players or the problems yet.
And new residents, maybe non-homeowners or non-parents, they might also feel they lack the lived experience with local issues like property taxes, zoning, public schooling.
So they feel like they don't have a right to weigh in.
Sometimes, yeah, or that their voice isn't as relevant. There's also the pervasive, typical voter stereotype, often perceived as older, white, and wealthy.
Which isn't everyone.
Exactly. And that stereotype can inadvertently discourage young voters, voters of color, others who don't see themselves reflected in the common image of the electorate.
It's truly a complex web of interwoven factors, isn't it? These aren't just random occurrences, but systemic challenges that, as you mentioned, can be strategically leveraged.
Exactly. The collective impact of all these factors creates a political landscape where dedicated organized groups, whether old school political machines or modern special interest groups, can mobilize their core supporters more effectively in these smaller, less engaged electorates.
An unintended consequence, but a powerful one. So we've talked about why people might not vote, but the story gets even more complex because beyond just individual behavior, the very rules of the game themselves are shifting dramatically at the state level.
Oh, yeah.
What broad trends are we seeing in election laws since 2020 that are fundamentally changing how we vote?
A critical insight here is the diverging approaches we're seeing across states. It really reveals a clear regional divide.
How so?
Well, generally, states in the South and Midwest seem to be moving in a more restrictive direction, while those in the Northeast and West tend towards policies that expand access. Since 2020, we've seen significant legislative activity on both sides.
Let's start with the trends that aim to expand voter access and maybe enhance security. What positive changes are states implementing?
Okay, on the expansive side, we've seen a strong response to some of the challenges from recent elections. For example, 16 states and D.C. have enacted new laws specifically to protect election workers.
From threats and harassment.
Exactly, from that alarming increase we saw after 2020. Similarly, 16 states and D.C. now have total bans on firearms in polling places, 7 states have partial bans, and there's ongoing legislative activity to limit firearms there.
Okay, what else?
We've also seen a big push for automatic voter registration, AVR. Currently, 24 states and D.C. have adopted some form of it.
And that helps how?
Well, the secure back-end version of AVR. It can increase registration by over 8% and turnout by more than 3%. That's a significant measurable boost just from one policy change.
Wow.
And finally, 5 states have enacted their own state voting rights acts since 2020. Minnesota was the latest in mid-2024. These give new legal tools to fight voter suppression and gerrymandering, especially since the Federal Voting Rights Act has been weakened.
That's a lot of movement towards better access and protection. But you mentioned a divergence. What about the restrictive trends, the ones making it harder for some to vote?
Yes, on the other side, we've seen a different set of priorities emerge. For instance, 26 states have enacted bans on private funding for election administration offices since 2020.
The so-called Zuckerbucks bans.
That's the common term, yes. These affect about 55% of eligible voters. Now, while they're often framed as promoting fairness, these bans frequently disregard existing gaps in public funding.
Meaning offices might not have enough money?
Exactly. which can lead to issues like outdated equipment, longer wait times at polls, and disproportionate impacts on disenfranchised voters. We've also seen stricter voter ID laws. At least 8 states have made their ID laws more restrictive since 2020.
How many states require ID now?
Currently, 15 states require some form of ID to vote, and 11 specifically require a photo ID. Research suggests these strict laws can reduce overall turnout by as much as 3 percentage points.
And that doesn't affect everyone equally, presumably?
No, studies show it disproportionately impacts voters of color. Lastly, 14 states have either withdrawn or had legislation introduced to withdraw from ERIC,
Eric, remind me what that is.
the Electronic Registration Information Center. It's a nonprofit consortium that helps states share data to improve voter roll accuracy, finding duplicate registrations, people who've moved, etc.
So leaving Eric makes it harder to keep voter lists clean.
It could severely impact those efforts, yes, creating new challenges for election integrity and administration.
That's a dramatic shift in the landscape, isn't it? Let's bring it back to the here and now. The 2024 elections had some major implications, particularly for education at the state level. What should we, as listeners, have been looking out for? Which races and initiatives were poised to have the biggest impact?
Well, in 2024, we saw gubernatorial elections in 11 states. And significantly, 8 of those states were guaranteed new executive leadership because governors were term limited or just chose not to run again.
8 new governors.
Right. And what's crucial to understand is that these governors don't just set budgets, they directly shape education policy through key appointments.
Like those chief state school officers you mentioned?
Exactly, in states like Delaware, Indiana, New Hampshire, Vermont. And they influence state boards of education across almost all of those 11 states. So a new governor often really means a new direction for education.
And what about the legislative bodies themselves, where so much policy actually gets hammered out?
Good point. Seats in 42 Senate chambers and 43 House chambers were up for election. The outcomes there determine legislative control, policy agendas, and critically, the leadership of those roughly 150 education-related legislative committees nationwide.
So huge implications there.
Huge. We also saw voters in 4 states, Montana, North Carolina, North Dakota, and Washington, directly elect their chief state school officers.
Wow.
Montana and North Carolina had new candidates vying for open seats, while incumbents faced strong challengers elsewhere.
So a lot of direct votes on education leadership. Were there also elections for state boards of education that influenced this?
Absolutely. Voters in 9 states, Alabama, Colorado, Kansas, Michigan, Nebraska, Nevada, Ohio, Texas, and Utah, elected members to their state boards of education.
And why are those board races so key?
Well, they're important because in states like Alabama, Colorado, Kansas, Michigan, Nebraska, and Ohio, the State Board of Education actually appoints the chief state school officer.
So it adds another layer of influence.
It really amplifies the impact of those board races. For instance, in Alabama and Colorado, voters decided on 4 partisan district seats out of 9 for their state boards, which definitely influences the overall balance of power.
Beyond the direct races for people, were there significant ballot measures that directly affected education?
Definitely. Voters in 14 states decided on 17 different ballot measures directly impacting education. They covered funding, governance, school choice, really showcasing a wide array of public priorities.
Give us some examples on funding.
Sure. A key one was California's Proposition 2, which proposed $10 billion in state bond funds for upgrading K-12 schools and community colleges, especially targeting less affluent districts. New Mexico also had bond questions, authorizing nearly $250 million for capital projects for various educational institutions.
Okay, so big money questions. What about changes to how schools are run or the choices parents have?
Yeah, for governance, Florida's Amendment 1 was significant. It proposed requiring district school board members to be elected with partisan affiliations.
Making school board races explicitly partisan.
Exactly. A shift that could deeply politicize local school decisions. In terms of school choice, we saw measures like Colorado's Initiative 138, aiming to put the right to school choice in the state constitution.
Wow, constitutional level.
And Kentucky's Amendment 2, which would enable the state legislature to introduce future laws allowing public funds for charter schools, potentially even private school vouchers.
Interesting. Any others?
Nebraska's Referendum 45 was another high-stakes vote. It let citizens decide whether to keep or repeal a measure allocating $10 million for parents to spend on private education expenses.
A direct vote on a specific funding program.
Yes. And one more in Massachusetts. Question 2 aimed to eliminate the MCSA standardized test as a high school graduation requirement, directly impacting students' academic paths. These measures really show the diverse ways citizens are engaging with education policy at the ballot box.
So, what does all this mean for us, the citizens? After unpacking these deep complexities and challenges, what tangible steps can we take to bridge the gap and get more people engaged in these crucial elections?
Yeah, a core takeaway here is that fostering civic participation really requires a multi-pronged approach.
Hmm.
It involves both grassroots efforts and systemic changes.
Okay, like what on the grassroots side?
Well, research shows that nonprofit voter outreach dramatically increases turnout, especially for typically unlikely voters, young people, black voters, Latino voters, low-income
There's
individuals.
been much of an increase.
These nonprofit voters can turn out 5.7 percentage points higher than comparable registered voters who weren't contacted, which is significant, and it creates a positive feedback loop.
How so?
Campaigns then start contacting these newly likely voters, bringing them further into the fold. Key best practices for these nonprofits include strong staff buy-in, strategic partnerships, and starting voter engagement activities early. Don't wait till the last minute.
So it's not just about government initiatives, but really robust community action too. What specific steps can governments themselves take to help facilitate this engagement?
Governments have several powerful levers. They can significantly educate citizens, providing clear civic education that emphasizes the direct, everyday impact of these elections on local communities.
Making it relevant.
Exactly. They also need to actively ensure accessibility, making polling stations truly accessible to all populations, thinking about parking, ramps, door openings for people with disabilities. Simple things that matter.
Right. What else?
Encouraging young voters is vital. Collaborating with schools and colleges for civic education, voter registration drives, using social media effectively to reach younger demographics where they are.
Meeting them where they are.
And finally, just improving voting access generally. Things like early voting, mail-in ballots, extended polling hours, maybe even electronic voting systems. These help overcome time constraints for busy constituents.
That's a good set of practical steps. What about the idea of consolidating elections? We talked about off-cycle elections having lower turnout. Could shifting the timing actually be a solution?
It absolutely can be.
Mhm.
Consolidating local elections to coincide with higher profile state and federal elections, putting them on cycle, can actually double voter turnout.
Bubble! That's huge.
It is. And it tends to make the electorate more representative of the whole community, reduces the outsized power of special interest groups, and significantly improves the accountability of elected officials.
Like those school board members you mentioned.
Exactly. Research shows school board members become more responsive to things like district test score improvements when their elections are on cycle. It enhances both descriptive representation officials looking more like their constituents and substantive representation policies better reflecting majority preferences. It's a powerful systemic change.
So if we as citizens want to get more involved beyond just casting a vote, what are some active steps we can take to stay informed and make our voices heard between elections?
Yeah, active citizen participation goes way beyond Election Day. You can engage through public consultations and meetings, both in person and online these days. They're often overlooked avenues for direct input.
Showing up matters.
It really does. Subscribing to your city or town newsletters, using digital feedback portals if they have them, following local representatives on social media, these are all accessible ways to stay informed and provide input.
And does how we talk about these things matter? Like the messaging?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Effective messaging is key. Research, especially with millennial voters, shows that messages that are positive elicit pride in the city and clearly frame how voting tangibly impacts issues.
Like
Police departments, libraries, schools, roads, parks. Those concrete things are particularly motivating, connecting the vote to the visible outcome.
it truly feels like there are so many levers we can pull, big and small, to make a difference right where we live. It really underlines the collective power we hold in shaping our own communities. What a deep dive this has been. We've truly unpacked the incredible, often unseen power of state and local elections. Yeah.
From shaping our kids' education and influencing criminal justice, right down to the roads we drive on and the character of our neighborhoods. It's a lot.
It is.
We've wrestled with the complex challenges of low turnout, understood the tectonic shifts occurring in election laws, and explored powerful, tangible strategies for boosting civic engagement.
Mm-hmm. It's abundantly clear that democracy isn't just about what happens in the national capitals. It's fundamentally about what happens right here in your backyard.
Indeed. This exploration of our sources reveals that the strength of our democratic system, its responsiveness, its ability to truly reflect the needs of its people, It's built from the ground up.
From the local level.
Exactly. What if we collectively shifted our focus just a bit from the distant political spectacle to the tangible power waiting in our local ballot boxes?
Imagine that.
Imagine what your community could look like if every eligible voice was heard in every single local and state election.
Hmm.
This isn't just about changing policies. It's really about defining the very identity and future of the places we call home.
A final thought to leave people with.
So, what will you discover about your local elections?